Mic check. Good. All right. Welcome. I love seeing as many people out here as we have this evening at Thoughtful Thursday or here at Raw Revelations. My name is Coach Joe. I am very just fortunate, and again, this is just a huge blessing to see this many people coming out for a talk that I think is very, very critical on everybody who's looking to begin to be healthy and looking to start with a very simplistic but very powerful place in their way of healing. So this is definitely one of those processes where we will go through what we call the five essentials, and this will give you a great introduction, and it'll actually allow you to hear why these five items are so critical for everybody if you aren't being exposed to them currently, to get them into the diet as quickly as possible and understand the purpose, the function, the dosing, everything that a lot of people have questions that kind of keeps them away from getting this started for themselves. We are recording, so thank you very much for everybody who's answering or asking questions. It does actually help whenever we get interruptions for people, so don't hesitate. Let me know when you have a question. We'll be able to get the information out to anybody who's not here. And if you're joining us online, catching this through YouTube, you can find us at rawrevelations.com, and you can use the coupon code SMART10, SMART, the number 10, all capital letters there, in order to get 10% off your next purchase with Raw Revelations. So definitely look forward to helping anybody out start on the five essentials. So I love the ability to get people here on Thursdays and be able to at least again start with our conscious breathing exercise. For anybody who's new here or catching us online, the way we do our conscious breathing exercise is we actually take 7 seconds of a very long inhalation. It allows for us to really open up and expand the lungs and the diaphragm, and then 8 seconds of breathing out. In order to actually fully evacuate the air and get that muscle fully constricted, another 7 seconds of breath in, 8 seconds of breath out, and then 30 seconds of just no real talking, just empty space to let everybody calm and get themselves ready for the rest of this hour. So we will go ahead and begin. Really focus, if you can, on the actual space that's right here underneath of the rib cage, inside the actual diaphragm here. You want it to be pushing out while you're breathing in. You want that full air potential opening up. So we'll go ahead and follow along with me. We'll be able to get the actual great activity. And like I say, just sets us up for having a great time. So 7 seconds of breath in. You're holding for a couple of seconds here at the top. And then 8 seconds of breath out. All the way down to technically nothing. 7 seconds of breath in. And 8 seconds of breath out. Fantastic. 1 minute of awesomeness. Every minute could be awesome if you just think about it. Conscious breathing. So think about what you're doing. But we want to get people activated in the way that we're going to talk about tonight, and that's really focusing on these five essential nutrients. Everybody out there, especially I believe in this crowd, but really everybody at large, always is trying to be healthy. That's, I think, the fundamental issue that people struggle with is they are constantly saying, I am trying to be healthy. I'm not really getting there, but I want to know a little more on how to actually see this start to happen, to see this really, my body start to change and my health, my level of health, my quality of health start to improve. Most people don't take their health at any real value until it's completely gone a lot of times. And it's usually some sort of issue in the body that's created the need for them to finally start thinking about it. A few of us do come to the realization that there's something to be protected and very valuable about the health before that ever happens, and it makes it a little easier. So it's one of those definite processes where we really want to find you wherever you are and get your system working in a way. These 5 essential nutrients are the beginning blocks for what we kind of understand as the biggest obstacle and hurdle that the last, say, 50 to 100 years has kind of created in the overall population due to deficiencies in diet and a lot of times certain environmental compounds, toxins, and things of that nature that pull good compounds away from our body. As we learn through this, we're going to really kind of see and discover that it's almost a not your fault if you've had your health fail. In a way, but there's also a lot that you can start to do today to really change that and experience some amazing benefits, in the process of healing. One of the unique things about what I do as a holistic health coach is more on the idea that we try to heal everything, not just the symptom you're currently experiencing. So these 5 essentials really work on the entire body in a whole system sort of way to let everything correct itself instead of somebody just getting over a cold, just having better digestion, maybe getting rid of some skin irritation, something that's very poignant. And we do want to fix those issues, but we want the entire system to be healthy. The way for us to actually see hormones be balanced, weight loss be occurring, mood balance to occur, these are system issues. The entire system has to be taken care of. We can a lot of times see the benefits of symptom care, symptom management, but a lot of times we miss the mark on really correcting overall health whenever we don't have especially these 5 essential nutrients. So what are the 5 that I'm talking about? The 5 key components from what we've seen over the last few years of us working with individuals, our own health, that actually will start to unlock your body is vitamin D, magnesium, iodine, MSM, and omega oils. Each one of these plays their own little role, their own hand in the activity of your body in very specific and certain ways. Each of these compounds are very hard to find in any level of multivitamin. So a lot of people have crutched and believed that multivitamin function is going to be the solutions for their problems. And what we've seen in the last 30 to 40 years when multivitamins became popular is health completely fail down to the absolute worst low level index to where, yes, longevity in our population has increased by about 2 to 3 years in the last 100, which is nice. But the funny thing is that the actual duration of the medical system care for the individual body has also doubled. So yes, you're living longer, a couple years, but you're living the last 20 to 30 years in the medical system the entire time. And that's the big issue, is that we used to have individuals, and I think some of us here in this room and people watching can actually know that they had an 80, 90, 100 plus individual make it on their own, live a really healthy life, not have the constant doctor care and influence throughout their entire later years. And they, again, passed with their own, self systems and not having a lot of medical influence. So in the last 50 to 60, maybe 70 years, we've seen a tremendous healthcare industry be built up on the idea that everybody's health was starting to fall down and the constant level of individual day care was so large. This is this powerful tool that I believe everyone should start using in order to take back their own healthcare system and get to what we call a self-care platform. And that is, if I have these 5 essentials, plus some of the other amazing superfoods that are available to us in all of the wonderful packages we have here, we can start to control our own health, our own bodies, and actually see the natural system start to work for us a little bit more effectively. So I always like to kind of get a feel for where people are and what they're doing currently and to find out where they sort of need the best assistance and where a lot of this is going to have their best application. So I love for anybody to kind of share, anybody who's willing to, a couple of the healthy practices or items or things that you might be doing or experiencing now and see how that might tie in, of course, to these 5 essentials. So anybody who'd actually like to just say one of the things that they're currently doing that's their own health benefit, we can see how we can actually integrate that as well too with everything else we're doing tonight. Okay. Okay, so you're taking Raw Revelation. So superfoods. Yes. Superfoods. Okay, so that's a big one. That's a big one. So that's kind of why everybody's here, to get that base understanding and then see what they can do to move forward. So fantastic. Any other good healthy things? Mushrooms. Okay, someone's been to the Superfood Academy recently. So yes, mushrooms, fantastic. Another great medicinal superfood that's been long-standing used in cultures prior to the establishment of Western medicine. Any other healthy practices? Pristine proteins. Okay, fantastic. Good little food item there. So no late night eating. Okay, good practice there, Bob. Oh, so getting exercise, actually getting yourself moving around, very necessary. Uh, in the back. More water, fantastic. Truthfully, one of the actual essentials that's before the five essentials. A lot of people we find very routinely, they'll walk in complaining or having issues in their health, and the first thing we say is, well, how much water are you drinking? Well, a glass or two a day if I'm lucky. That's an essential before even you get to the five essentials. Water is this key piece of this puzzle that we need for best human operation. Average person needs to be taking in anywhere between probably 60 to 80 ounces a day. The rule of thumb is the idea that you take your body weight and divide that by half for the total number of ounces of water that you need to be consuming on a day-to-day basis. And this is regardless of exercise, time in the sun, coffee, alcohol, things that actually will take water away from your body. So, irregardless of all of that, somewhere in that range, usually 60 to 80 ounces, 100 ounces for people who are really trying to get hydrated, can be an amazing first step change. Very wonderful. Because we got to get good stuff in us. That's where we're going to be talking about this tonight. So, as we're sort of going through here, the five essentials were something that I started working with because it made a lot of sense to me that as I was working with individuals, when I started using these special three dietary deficiencies in giving them back into individuals' bodies, we found that they themselves would miraculously heal. They just all of a sudden one day didn't feel the issue they had prior to that, whether it was a stomach issue, skin issues, mood issues, hormone issues. And it was unique because one of the first and foremost materials that has become such an amazing level of deficiency in the diet is vitamin D. And it's mainly because you can't really get it too strongly in your diet. That's the biggest problem here. We have a natural system to produce our own through photosynthesis of our own skin and through the sun's interaction by converting vitamin D2. The unique thing that's happened in the last 100 years that's taken that process away is modern plumbing and the ability to shower on a daily basis. So as much as we love that concept, which is probably why we're all very comfortable in this room together, no one's having any issues trying to bump somebody away and push their chair farther away from everybody else. So we love the advent of this concept of daily bathing. But the unique thing that we do when we take this process and we actually add soap onto our skin is we prevent the ability for us to reabsorb the converted vitamin D3 from the sun's and yesterday's interaction with our skin. So this is one of those unique issues and problems that we're dealing with now, to where we have a very common critical level for vitamin D in the blood at about 25 to 30 nanograms per milliliter, so nanograms per liter. So here's the unique thing. The doctoring system that's established says that healthy is anywhere between 30 and 100. Technically, that's big enough to put two 4747s together through that hole in order to understand where good health comes from. Every other nutritional material that's tested inside the blood has literally a window sometimes of 1 or 2 units, to where we have it so dialed down as to how good or bad something is and where the ranges for health really operate. So here's that interesting issue. You could be at 31 and have body problems, have some issues that your doctor is saying, oh, don't worry about it, you're in range on vitamin D. And yet, if you just put that range to 60, closer to 100, you would actually start to see your health improve. This is definitively connected to allergies, immune function, a lot of asthmatic issues, respiratory issues, skin healing interactions. So when you have skin that doesn't heal very effectively or maintain moisture, we see a lot of human health problems occurring because of minimalized vitamin D levels. Again, I say that it's not very common in food. There's some in high quality fish oil products and some mushrooms, but very little. So it's unique because our bodies are constantly craving this regenerative nutrient that actually allows our cells to maintain a healthy activity in their ability to regenerate. Yes, go ahead. Yes. You can. So the question was, do we build up vitamin D, and can you take a break from consuming it as an actual supplement? Yes. The interesting issue is that every time you would ever have any kind of trauma, high level stress, lack of sleep, anything would start to decrease your vitamin D because it's going to be used in the body's cells to regenerate. So you're constantly peeling a little bit off. And the example I always use is the idea of the farmer bringing the hayload truck out to the barn in order to shovel the food over the fence and to feed all the barn animals. The unique thing is that when you shove two little pitchforks of hay and go, there you go, guys, that's all we got today, and you drive away, every animal in that barnyard is going to be upset. And that's all the cells, that's all the systems, that's all the parts of the body that go, where's mine? What's happening here? I need to do X and X and X in terms of understanding how to get the body to operate. If you show up, back the truck up, and dump 3 times the amount of vitamin D into that barnyard, every animal's happy. You've got more than enough waiting to when they get hungry again and are looking for vitamin D to come back and utilize it. So yes, you can dose yourself to where you can create a storage potential and then use it whenever an issue comes into the body. I like the idea of maintaining at a super high level to where if I do come into a problem, then I actually will drop to more of a normal range and then can supplement myself back into it without having any issues in my health. So let's say you would have some sort of major trauma and be stuck in a hospital for 2 to 3 weeks trying to heal. Your vitamin D stores, if they're already midline or deficient, are going to be dropped even lower. That's going to be the case. You're not being exposed to the sun. You're not having the normal digestive system. So that's going to affect the vitamin D counts. Like I say, average person, dosage wise, 5 to 10,000 IU per day. That's average. Now, the interesting piece to this, to caveat the detail, is that get your blood level for vitamin D tested to find out where you are today, because you can set yourself up on a different dosing system for periods of time in order to build up a value in your bloodstream so you can maintain healthier levels. 5 to 10 is maintenance. So if you're already low, it's very difficult for a lot of people to raise their levels up to healthier values to see body issues change in order to actually have a correction system. So someone might say, oh yeah, I've been taking vitamin D for 2, 3, 5, 10 years, 2,000 a day, haven't seen any differences. Well, what's your level? Well, I'm at 24. Okay, well, so you started off low, you've been taking a minimum dose, and that's why it's never come up to the point where you've seen any major healing occur for the body. Yes? What's the name of that test? So the vitamin D blood test is actually called the 25OH vitamin D test. That's the active form in the blood system. So again, we talk about vitamin D2 that goes from the skin to being photosynthetically reactive to where the vitamin D3 is produced. And the vitamin D25OH is the active form after it's gone through the digestive system and have it to, fully be worked on by the entire system of the body. It requires 7 of our organs in order for it to actually convert itself to become fully active. So that's another big issue we see a lot of times when we have a ton of stomach digestive disorders and a lot of issues with inflammation in the gut. We're very improperly processing our vitamin D. If you're missing your spleen or appendix or gallbladder, you're losing enzymes that are necessary in the process of actually creating your own vitamin D. So you have special considerations that affect this as well too. I highly recommend anybody here spend some time, go to what's called the vitamindcouncil.org. Fantastic group of people who are doing a tremendous amount of research. And we've seen vitamin D be used in everything from depression treatment to stomach issues to skin issues, asthmatic conditions, allergy conditions. The main operation we see, and again, inside cells, is the immune function. So people who are chronically getting infections, who have very low immune function overall, this is one of those critical nutrients. It's very rarely tested and yet can be the actual saving grace for a lot of people finally getting those levels up. Yes? vitamindcouncil.org. So they're literally compiling information from 115 to 120 something countries out there, everybody doing vitamin D research in all the different applications, finding out again and really narrowing down. They finally put out a 65 on the test as being a little bit more of a better recommendation minimum. So finally, we're coming up to the point to where, again, to me, 80 to 100. One of the unique things about vitamin D that always gets me when I talk to individuals is the idea that they're scared of overdosing because it's a fat soluble vitamin. And they were told by their doctor, you better watch out. Too much vitamin D might hurt you. The actual test, like we talked about, where the average person's about 25, toxicity can occur, and it's usually at 250 nanograms per liter over the course of time. So the unique thing is that's 1,000 times more than we average carry. It's very hard for people to see that issue come into their body. So don't be scared of something that's very impractical. Be very active in understanding your own health, but get your blood levels tested. That's a very big piece of this. We have a very wonderful liquid product here that is sublingually activated to where it goes directly underneath the tongue. So for everybody who's out there, vitamin D, they call it gold for a reason. The unique thing is that this is one of the byproducts away from sheep lanolin. They actually pull the D3 oil out of the very ends of the wool coming away from sheep. No sheep were harmed in the production of this vitamin D. So if you're that type of person, it's actually a common process for us to take the wool away, and then we just get the lanolin at the very end there. But this is one of the best and most absorbable forms for vitamin D that we've been able to find. So 1,000 drops, 1,000 IU per drop, average person 5 to 10 drops, just to keep a good maintenance level. So this is definitely one of those where can't say enough of it. I probably should do a class on just vitamin D and its functionality inside the human system and all the extensive testing that's been done for it. But the idea is this is, to me, a good place to start. Yes, in the back. I didn't know you were supposed to put it under your tongue. Is there a reason for that? The blood vessels that you have underneath the actual tongue allow for the absorption within about 3 to 5 seconds. So when you go sublingually, you actually have the ability for the most absorption instead of if you were to even put this in like a drink or any kind of material and have it not go underneath and touch the blood vessels that are there. That's the other thing about vitamin D is be stingy. Give it to yourself and yourself only, not your cup, not your glass, not your spoon. Give it to just yourself. So it is one of those where we really see some benefits from taking that by itself. And yes, vitamin D is a heat sensitive molecule. So if you've just had warm water or anything of that nature, wait a few minutes until you have a much more normal body temperature and that it's not being affected by anything before you take your vitamin D. Carry that in your purse. Yeah, that's probably not the best thing. It should be stored in some place that's generally cool, going to be on a shelf. I would not, as much as it might be convenient to carry it around, there's just too much heat and temperature exposure issues that could happen to where we want people to try to get the vitamin D to be protected as best as possible. You can keep it cold. There's no issue on that. No issue on keeping it cold. Any other big vitamin D questions? Good on that one? All right. So the next really amazing, and I think the one that people will notice, because one thing about vitamin D, you may not notice the difference with it. You may take it for the rest of your life and honestly never see really anything magical, quote unquote, happen. But when we go to something like magnesium, magnesium is something that I know is a magical mineral because this is the one that actually most people probably within this room, catching us online when you test the products, magnesium can take away your pain very instantly, cause you to finally have a really good night of sleep, allow for you to finally get digestion to work for your body and be able to actually get your stomach colon flow to be more regulated. And it finally could actually start to bring your diabetic balance back under control. So you would notice a change very, very quickly when you start to use magnesium. We literally do call this one the miracle mineral because of that effect. It's definitely one that we like for people to understand. 96% of this population, probably closer to 98%, is deficient. I take this probably in 3 different forms every single day, and I'm probably still deficient. it's hard to actually get a true maintained good blood level of magnesium. And that's because every connection, every cell, every function, 300 and as far as we know, 328 metabolic interactions require at least one molecule of magnesium. Some of them require multiple molecules of magnesium. So it's used in so many different ways inside the body. Deficiency is very easy to spot. If you have a cramp, you're deficient. If you have any kind of pain, you're deficient. If you have inflammation, swelling, issues in your body, in really any area, it's probably somewhat pinned towards magnesium. Magnesium and vitamin D go very hand in hand. When levels are low of vitamin D and low of magnesium, very common for people to be osteopenia or osteoporosis. These two minerals are actually what create the balance of absorption and the actual adherence of calcium to our silica-based structure, which is our skeletal system. So this is definitely one of those where we see a lot of people who go, "Oh, I'm doing fine. Yeah, I take a little vitamin D. I've got my magnesium, but the doctor says my bone density still keeps decreasing. I don't understand." Well, what's your vitamin D level? 34. Oh, okay. Well, that's your problem. How much magnesium do you take? Well, I take a little 1,000 milligram capsule every couple of days or whatever. Again, this is one of those where I think one of the things I like to talk about on the 5 Essentials, more on the holistic aspect, is how serious do you take your health? I have a calendar and a list of literally how I live in terms of what I do for my own health. It's a serious game. I'm playing with my life and the quality of it. So it's one of these things where we say that about a lot of things as well too. Magnesium is an everyday application item. And the one thing that the research and the study has come into us and shown is that it needs to be more than just taken in a pill form, that the actual stomach lining is very poor at absorbing magnesium. And it's one of those where transdermally through the skin, we see so much better absorption. And the difference here is about 15% through the intestines to about 75% through the skin. So it's unique. Shows that in those two numbers, we could finally actually get to close to 100 if we're eating a little bit of magnesium and putting it through the skin. Most people from European cultures have a common practice of magnesium salt bathing. They know what the Dead Sea is. They've been on a pilgrimage to hot springs and vernal spas. And we used to actually have right here in Murrieta one of the most amazing hot springs that used to be literally a couple steps away from this door that we don't have anymore, which is kind of sad. And there's very few people who have tapped into that hot mineral water source. But the reason we are called Murrieta Hot Springs, the road outside, is because it used to be right here. So it's unique because mineral waters bring in a lot of this good magnesium. And one of the easiest ways most people may not have known they were giving magnesium to their body is by taking an Epsom salt bath, which is actually a sulfur and magnesium matrix in order to give your body a very large dose through the skin. You do it for aches and pains. You do it because of swelling. And it's definitely one of those where we want to reintroduce the habitual practice of getting magnesium back into the body. So we're definitely looking forward to bringing this sort of this application around. Yes. Feet's fine, but you have so much more skin available. The idea is get as much of your body in. If we could sleep in, magnesium gel tubes that literally just have now, then we'd probably heal everything, and we'd have no issues in the human body anymore. It would be one of those, but we're not quite to the cryogenic system yet of new activation for science. Although someone out there probably just got a really good idea on something to. Yeah, I was going to say, we got to figure this one out. Yes, exactly. Yes. Every day, as much as you can. Average person, 30 to 40 minutes, I would say. Again, if you're letting your water go from a very high temperature down to where it's a little too cool to stick in. It's unique because even a lot of hot tubs now are using salt as a purification system, and you can put magnesium-rich salt in your hot tubs and actually sit in that all day long. Don't do this with a conventional hot tub. It'll destroy your piping and you'll actually break your hot tub. But if you have a salt water converted hot tub or pool system, then it is a fantastic way for your body to see this. And there is something very intrinsic about us and the interaction with the ocean that this is a very common relationship to see. And that's where it's very simple. Very, yes, go ahead. Sea salt can actually be one of the best ways for people to be eating their magnesium on a routine basis. We have a very wonderful Icelandic sea salt, one of the highest magnesium containing salts we've been able to locate. And there's also really good foods like cacao. Fantastic superfood for being able to eat magnesium. Again, one of the unique things we find with people is that there's a craving for chocolate in our society. It's because of the magnesium. That's why we really want it. The sad part is they alkalize, Dutch, and destroy all of the good minerals inside the chocolate to make things like Hershey's, and they are not helping us get what we need. And so our body just says one more, one more, one more, and we have an addiction then that kind of permits our brains thinking correctly. Our society and what we understand about our foods is not. So that's a very interesting place to kind of understand. Very, very much so. This actual cacao is sourced from Ecuador, one of the purest Arabica Nacional and organic tree stands from material that's actually 70-year plus tree growths. So it's actually not the more standard quick harvest material where they cut the trees down every 20 years. These are ancient trees giving off one of the best cacao pods in order to create the powder from the cacao bean. And again, one of the best versions for magnesium to come into the body. So mix that with a little bit of cacao butter or coconut oil, a little bit of coconut palm sugar or xylitol if you want to go on the sugar-free side, a little bit of Mucuna if you want to have a nice night, and you've got yourself a very delicious source of magnesium that creates good relaxation in the body, and you'll love every second of it. So you don't have to think of magnesium as being this fine crystalline powder that tastes horrible when you mix it with orange juice. That's not what it has to be. But transdermally, again, the idea is magnesium oil, magnesium gel, get as much of it. This is pretty much just a Epsom salt or magnesium saltwater soak in a bottle. And the idea is to put it on the skin as much as you prefer or feel. Definitely when you have aches and pains, migraines, any kind of indigestion, to the area that's directly affected. So that's one of the beautiful things about this. Again, you'll feel the difference of actually getting magnesium in your body. And I have a lot of people, we work at farmers markets on the weekends where we're actually selling a lot of these products. Well, they will try out a sampler of this on their low back or on their knee and do one little half trip around the farmers market, come back and go, okay, give me the bottle. Because that was just too quick. That was amazing. You know, I take whatever on a day-to-day basis, ibuprofen, aspirin, in order to stop my inflammation, and usually it doesn't even work. And here you gave me something within 10 minutes that totally took away the pain. Miracles in a bottle. So, like I say, we love that stuff. I mentioned the bone connection. I mentioned the diabetes connection, migraine connection, hypertension connection, right? Okay, good. So, high blood pressure, lack of magnesium. Imagine the inner lining of the arterial walls that are inside your vascular system. When they get stressed, they actually tighten in tension. This is hypertension. The idea is magnesium is a relaxing molecule. It actually cuts down the constriction of those muscles inside the tiny little arterial walls. So if you're a hypertensive person, magnesium deficiency is probably your biggest one key of it. And very rarely are we going to see the effectiveness of pharmaceutical regulation as what we see with just the constant exposure to magnesium. And that's one of those interesting puzzles that I love to undo for people is I can't live without my blood pressure medication. I go, yes, you can. You just need magnesium back in the life. And it'll actually start having a big effect. Big effect. So the other big dietary deficiency that we're struggling with, and we see the evidence of this everywhere that we can possibly go, is iodine. And it is one of these few molecules that I would say scares people a little bit. They don't quite understand it. They think they should be okay with the way that they eat. They've got a healthy diet. Everything should be fine. And yet very consistently we see that lack of iodine creates a cascade effect in the body for everything from immune dysfunction to hormone imbalance, digestive issues. And this is because iodine is so critical for the actual thyroid gland to be in full operation. When we have a deficient or defunct thyroid, it is the controlling center for all of the electrochemical and neurotransmitter hormone issues inside the body. So when that fails, technically speaking, imagine control tower, LAX airport, no more power. What's going to happen? We have thousands of planes, people, things moving at all points in times, and the control module has just shut down. That's when we lose our iodine levels and we don't have function in our thyroids. So it's very, very critical for people to understand that, again, this is definitely one where there's a little bit of fear because they've been told, stay away from iodine, you can hurt yourself, there's a lot of problems. This is true, there is something to that, but the idea is to get a very high quality, reputable source of iodine that comes from plants, not crude oil, not any kind of byproduct from any sort of factory synthesis systems, but just purified plants give us a very high quality source of iodine. There's a lot of different brands and a lot of different labels and a lot of different types of iodine out there. The biggest difference is that you want a compound that's full of iodide, which is a single iodine molecule, or iodine, which is actually two iodines stuck together. If you can keep it into the iodide-iodine complex, then you'll have a really high absorption system, and your body will actually uptake this material very readily. Yes, go ahead. So atomic iodine means that it's actually just iodine present as an atom, but it could be as high as anywhere between 50 to 60 iodines all clumped together and very non-functional for the human system. Atomic iodine, again, is something that a lot of times people in the atomic era, when we started actually messing around with atomic bombs, potassium iodine was a common thing to be given out at everything from schools to your local hospitals. All military personnel had to carry that around, and that was atomic iodine bonded to potassium for you to be able to throw it in the mouth if anything bad happened, in order to protect yourself very, very quickly from radioactive iodine exposure. Once radioactive iodine drops into the thyroid gland, it literally just burns like a hot coal and destroys all the tissues surrounding it. So then, of course, you find that if we know that about radioactive iodine, there was a medical treatment, and I think there might still be a medical treatment where they have people drink radioactive iodine in order to shut down their thyroid in order to stop hyperthyroidism, which is just as easily regulated by taking in good quality iodine. So it's a very unique issue that we're dealing with here. Yes, go ahead. No. So, in the history of iodine for especially this country, prior to, I think, 1936, all bread, all flour was iodinized. And as you ate daily bread and you fixed material with flour, you were able to absorb a very good quality of iodine from that process. And you would slowly be eating a little bit of iodine each day, not too much, but you had some presence of it. Morton's got the good idea that what we'll do is we'll take this hard rock salt that we've been pulling out of the mines underneath of Indiana, Missouri, Ohio, and we're just going to spray iodine on top of it as we're pulling the salt out, and we'll call it iodinized salt, and then we'll actually take it away from the bread system. It was getting quote-unquote expensive. Really not much expense, but it was enough to where it was an issue. And so iodinized salt is actually an improper version of iodine that's very hard for the body to digest and absorb. So when we twisted that issue around, we created a condition in our bodies. Now what's funny is they put a lot of bromine in the bread, and bromine actually replaces the iodine and causes dysfunction in the thyroid. Bromine is very similar molecularly to iodine, so it's absorbed in about the same way. And so now we have what's called brominism occurring in our society because of the bread products, the flours that are brominated in order to cleanse them and keep them healthy. And yet what it's really creating is a lot of thyroid dysfunction. Correct. Well, it's technically what they call nutritionless, and they're right, but it actually is an anti-nutrient and causes toxicity in the thyroid. So there is a problem here on the iodine issue, but the solution is take good quality iodine. The iodine that you find in this particular is what we call the Iosol product. It is a nanoparticulate broken down to the actual iodide and iodine molecular size, and it's very easy for the body to absorb just by placing it a single drop in water. One drop gives you about 1,200% of what the normal RDA, or reduced death allowance, that the actual system has established that actually creates insufficiency in the body. So one drop is actually more iodine than most people will eat in an entire year of a normally healthy diet, even including seaweeds, including walnuts, including a lot of the foods that are iodine rich. We do have a major issue to where this is no longer present. And in the last 40 years, the thyroid epidemic is one of the fastest growing, overtaking cancer even.
Take that under the tongue.
In the water, drink it down. If you can swish it, keep it there for a few seconds, then sure, that's perfect.
So, like, is this where we're all kind of confused when it comes to hypertension because of the salt?
Correct.
We're
Correct.
not supposed to take because they actually screwed up our salt.
Correct. And that's where rock salt, taken from that far removed of the earth and no longer balanced to a seawater source, is full of sodium, very sodium rich, and sodium as a molecule causes hypertension. So the idea that salt being a hypertensive, and the idea that I'm saying magnesium rich salt, sea salts, are actually very relaxing, and they give you the magnesium that your body's needing.
Yeah, because I've noticed since I've been buying better salt,
Correct.
that it's like even when I overdose the salt in my soup or something like that,
Uh-huh.
it seems to be okay. Because it's like I really like it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, a lot of people have a salt craving, and the idea is they need to find a good source to be able to go to. Truffles and salt are delicious, especially if you had a little garlic and a little bit of good butter. So yes, fantastic material. Anything to get you eating good, high quality salt. That's true. In the back there. Himalayan salt, again, is a very nice rock salt, but the ocean that it's derived from is actually a much more recent ocean, and therefore it's minerally more, does have a predominance of magnesium. So there's still some sodium there, and there are people who don't work very well with salt. The idea is, don't look at a grocery store here as being your only framework for understanding. There are salts from all over the world: Hawaiian salt, Celtic salt, Portuguese salt, New Zealand salts, Icelandic salts. Each one has a slightly different variant on a lot of the accessory minerals. Some people, again, don't like the taste of Himalayan. There are a ton of options out there. Truffle salt, like we mentioned, is a really good one that we've started carrying here that people really enjoy. So that's one where people are loving that one. Snacking on salt, again, becomes this great way of keeping bad salty foods out of your diet. And if you're knowing that you're eating a good quality, you can be comfortable going after and actually satisfying that craving instead of staying away from it.
Farmers markets where people are there and they have all these salts.
Mhm.
They should all be safe.
They should be safe ones. If you ask them, do you have any iodinized salts? And they go, oh yeah, right over here. I wouldn't trust them. The idea is you want to go off the naturals. But most of those people, when they're doing farmers market sales, are doing artisan salts, and they're usually a sea salt derivative. I haven't found anybody trying to dress up Morton's and put a new spin on it. But again, show me somebody out there, market that concept. Yeah, the idea is you really want to be getting back into using iodine.
One more question about iodine.
Uh-huh.
Is there a possibility to
There is. Everybody actually has what's called a functional dose level for iodine, and I have worked with people to where they can't take a single drop in a day. They actually will take the drop, put it into 4 ounces, and they'll drink 1 ounce of that 4 ounces of water each day for 4 days. Their levels and their body's ability, and it's usually because their bromonism is so high, the iodine gets in there and starts competing for the thyroid, and it starts to create an overexcitation to the system. So the toxicity has created almost an allergy because the solution is removing the toxin. So you feel sometimes and this is where we have like the scary side of working with this, working with hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, Hashimoto's, all of the thyroid toxemias. This is definitely one where everybody has their own value and amount. We try to say safely, do 1 drop, see how your body reacts. If you are taking too much iodine, the reaction system that we see is a little bit of maybe heart palpitation, a little sweating, just a general feeling of being flush or warm, or even even a little tingling in the hands and the feet. Again, it's just showing that your body is now really fully active and fully producing as much thyroid hormone as it can, and that's a good indication that you might be doing too much. But understand, coming from myself, take me as an example, I started off with about 4 or 5 8 years ago. I now do about 27 to 29 drops a day. So the functionality of it and the utilization of it in the body is one where we do see a big effect here. So, yep, in the back.
You said that one drop was way more than what you need in a day, but you take 24 drops.
Correct. Well, again, the standard governmentary RDA, recommended daily allowance or dosage allowance, what I call the actual remedial death allowance, is what causes a problem. Most of the standards for what you see on a package were established anywhere between 100 to 200 years ago, and were really to try to mitigate old world diseases like scurvy, goiter, a lot of these issues that we've moved so far above and beyond just those little problems. And usually it was complete lack of certain things in the diet due to poverty, isolation, being at the ocean for months on end, that you weren't getting good quality nutrients. And we haven't updated much, which is kind of sad.
So, could you say start with 1 drop a day
Uh-huh.
and keep giving yourself another drop a day until you feel?
You can. That's definitely the functionality of it, and that's what I would recommend. But I would say,
2 drops a day, and I don't really feel anything.
right.
So could I up it?
How long have you been doing that?
Probably a month or.
Okay. So 30 days is usually an introductory pattern for a lot of people to get it to where you can see and make sure your body has a good reaction, that you don't have secondary issues occurring. So after about 30 days, definitely each day add 1 additional drop and find where your body has a reaction. Don't be surprised if it's literally in the 15, 16, 18 category. Our bodies need more iodine. And one of the issues, again, that we're not going to get too far into today, but with the impending issues of Fukushima and the Pacific Ocean shutdown, the ability for radioactive iodine to becoming a part of your diet and something that you could be exposed to, the only prevention method that I know of that's foolproof is having full saturation of iodine in your bloodstream now. As soon as you become exposed to it, your body has no discernment towards the idea of radioactive particulate iodine and non-radioactive particulate iodine. If you're deficient, you'll suck up radioactive iodine just as strongly as you will non-radioactive. So there is a tremendous issue lingering on the horizon, literally, coming after the West Coast population for a problem here. Yes, go ahead.
That reaction, you probably get the reaction short term after taking it.
Correct.
Any time during the day.
So short term, yes, usually about 15 minutes. And that will show you. If you get the reaction, say 2 hours later, you probably could have done 1 drop more. But
It's like I used to sweat too much.
right?
But at mealtime now,
Uh-huh.
consuming a good meal.
Right?
Towards the end of the meal,
Sweating.
I'll be sweating.
And that's actually a sign that you're finally getting good levels of iodine. What you're seeing is the fact you just filled your stomach and the furnace, just like a water heater, turned on and started boiling the products that are down inside your stomach now. And you're getting energy from them. Metabolism is finally increased. A lot of people, when you have low iodine, will never see metabolism operate for their bodies. They'll always be cold. They'll always have cold extremities. They'll always have issues where they just never feel like they can warm up enough. Because again, that thyroid gland is controlling so much about especially what's called the thymus gland, which is located right behind the sternum, and that's the actual temperature regulation device. So that thyroid being low function means it's telling the thymus to not be high function, and that can cause issues like that. So we definitely see reactions. Like I say, I eat a good meal, I sweat. It's a good reaction. Go ahead, Bob.
So is it a good idea to do the salt water in the morning
Yes.
in conjunction with this to kind of pull the bromine?
That's exactly right. Very good point. So if you believe, which most people are, you've got some effects of bromonism occurring in your body, by taking high quality salt as a medicine, half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, not only can you actually keep your regulation of your colon a little bit better, but you'll actually start to detox a lot of that bromine out of the thyroid gland while you're putting the new good iodine back in. And there's definitely a healing protocol there for doing even a detox of increasing your salt intake on the mornings by half a teaspoon each day until you can kind of flush your whole body out and actually get rid of a lot of that bromine. But taking the baths and getting the actual salt surrounding your body can help as well too. So that becomes a really good interaction. Correct. If you're doing MSM, you're getting some salt first thing in the morning. The idea though is to really do see a good detox on the bromine is to be adding about half a teaspoon more. So again, lemon water first thing in the morning. A lot of people have that daily habit. That becomes a nice way of just throwing in a little bit of salt. If you're making a shake, a smoothie, a tea, a coffee, a whatever, like I say, add some salt.
I've been adding a pinch of salt for every about 10 ounces of water that I take to the gym.
Oh yeah. And again, you need the minerals. Trust me, most people are deficient. So keep going with eating high quality salts. Definitely. One of the things that I wanted to mention for everybody here to understand again as we're talking about implications and seeing effects. Every 17 minutes, the entire volume of blood in your body passes through the thyroid gland and is cleansed if you have adequate iodine. One of the big things we see with people who are routinely infected and their infections last for a very long time is they're extremely low on serum iodine. Because of that cleansing process, just like when we put iodine on the outer portions of our skin prior to surgery or anytime we get any kind of major laceration or abrasion, it's cleansing in that way. It's killing microbes. Most microbes can't exist in the presence of good quality iodine. So this is a unique practice that understand long-term effects are very little infection potential. I've been one of those to where I've been very fortunate, very blessed in the whole fact that I just haven't had any of these major stomach flus, upper respiratory issues that a lot of people are suffering from in these last 4 or 5 years. I haven't had an issue. And I know there's something to that when it comes to the actual iodine dosing. So those 3 deficiencies, very, very critical to start somewhere. Begin with them a little bit. Get them introduced. If that's the only thing we can do is just get them started, get your body accustomed to some practice. Yeah, a lot of people are busy. But I take it pretty serious on myself. I'd like for everybody else to start doing that the same. Again, the unique thing is there is a lot to being focused on yourself and being healthy before you're rushing out the door for your boss and your job or the traffic or whatever it might be. Taking that time is very critical for healing on you. Definitely a part of this process. So the next of the 5 essentials that I would love for people to start talking about is MSM. Methylated sulfur. So MSM, I call it the great assistant because it is actually a compound that works with so many other aspects of your body's health. The main component, though, for that sulfur is critical in all of the structural tissues of your body, all of the actual joints, all of the nerve fibers, a lot of the muscle structure, the bones itself. You are about 7%, if we boiled you down into all the elements that make up your body, about 7% sulfur. So the unique thing is that we don't talk very much about the idea of this being one of the most essential dietary nutrients to get back in the system. With MSM, in good quality MSM, that's again not crude oil derived, but actually plant derived, we can see increased hydration, better digestion, an anti-inflammatory. It works as a very good anticoagulant to where your blood actually does a fantastic job at not being condensed or compressed. If you've ever done what's called live cell iridology and seen your cells moving and flowing around in a drop of your own blood, this can unstick a lot of those and make them to where they're less sludgy, less sticky or thick. Sulfur is so critical in the process of the development of everything from the liver function and all the enzymes that you're needing to break down the actual food that you're taking into the body. And when we use things like our MSM morning mix, we've added a little bit of the salt, we've added some berries, we've added things like shilajit mineral compounds, anti-inflammatories, high-level antioxidants in order to really see the depth and the benefits of this MSM start to function in the body. MSM also gives us a very wonderful nutrient called methylation, or a methyl group, and that's the methylsulfonylmethane that's used in the chemical composition there. And that methyl group works as a carrier for other nutrient items and in the process of detoxification. So MSM does a fantastic job at assisting us in breaking our food down and detoxing material out of the body that the body's been holding on to for a very long time and causing cells to not function properly. Yes.
What is the sulfa? Because I hear, I know my mother was allergic to
Mhm.
any type of medication and had sulfa in it.
Correct.
And it's like, from chemistry, that doesn't
See
ring
the
a bell.
difference, yeah. Well, sulfate, sulfite, and sulfur. So that's the breakdown we see there, depending on where the nitrogen bond is actually inside the compound connected to the sulfur. So as we get to sulfa, you're taking one amine group off, one nitrogen binding composition, and adding an oxidase group. So by doing that, most people's skin system reacts very anaphylactically, and so sulfa-based drugs, they use it to create a good absorption to the system. What happens is for people who are especially sulfur deficient, their body tries to absorb that sulfur that's in that sulfa drug, and it actually creates an allergic reaction. So sulfa drugs is a way for people to have used one step away from homeopathics, and it was kind of used as a base nutrient. And the reason is because MSM is very easy to absorb into the body, and so your cells will take whatever is connected to that sulfa molecule and push it through the stomach lining and allow for it to be absorbed into the bloodstream. But yes, a lot of people are sulfite reactive, sulfate reactive, sulfa reactive, but everybody, currently speaking, again, I've known only a couple people to ever have a true sulfur allergy. But it is one of those where when you're deficient, your body tries whatever it can do to pull in the compound it's deficient in, and that's where we usually see that interaction. So methylated, again, has taken care of this beautiful issue by allowing the actual sulfur ion to be pulled across the stomach lining for it to be absorbed by the human body. So we see a lot of benefits here. Again, this is another one that I would say, just like magnesium, we have people who will feel the difference. They actually are taking MSM and they can see a change in their body. Sometimes as little as a week is all it might take, just because the body's in such need and such deficiency on sulfur. And very few people are talking about it. Very few people say anything about deficiency in sulfur. But it is one of the things that can be also leading towards osteopenia, osteoporosis, a lot of cartilage and degenerative connective tissue disorders, just even basic arthritis. So this becomes a really good solution system for boosting the body's ways of healing very effectively. One of the more interesting stories we have is somebody who had a motorcycle injury where they had kind of ripped off their foot. Foot was luckily reattached, but the interesting part was it probably healed very improperly. After taking the MSM for the course of about a month or so, tremendous pain was occurring in that actual joint, and it felt to them, and I remember them saying, almost like I had broken / detached it again. And yet as they kept using that MSM, all of a sudden they finally had better mobility. They were finally starting to heal the internal connective tissues in a way that wasn't possible without MSM in their body. So it becomes a very, very key nutrient for a lot of that skin healing. They call MSM, they call sulfur the beauty mineral. Hair, skin, and nails, a lot of people, when they're having issue in those categories, this is the main deficiency. Magnesium has a piece, vitamin D has a piece, but sulfur is a lot of times one of the main deficiencies that is occurring for us to see better improvement.
There's a lot of products out there that are creams
Mm-hmm.
that all say MSM.
Correct.
Are they valuable or?
They are, but again, it's the usage amount. They're using MSM as a way to carry whatever's inside that cream through the skin. So your body very quickly will absorb, because just like using Epsom salt or sulfur spring, sulfur bathing, they're wanting your body to pull in the compounds of that cream. So when they're adding MSM, they're hoping that it actually, and we put that inside our magnesium gel for just that same function as well too. So you're getting a little bit, but it goes back to that whole idea of, are you going to walk out of the house with a ½ inch of cream all over the body to get enough MSM for the day? Probably not. So MSM is another great product because you can, again, functionally dose yourself. So a lot of people start off with just a teaspoon, a little bit of warm water first thing in the morning. It's bitter, so they don't want to be sometimes mixing it with their chocolatey berry banana smoothies. But it is one where it mixes well with a lot of citrus products. So people seem to like it with lemon water or grapefruit juice or something like that. But the MSM is one to where, again, you can start to increase your dosages in order to functionally get your body to where you see a reaction. The reaction when you're at your upper limit is actually a small kind of headache to the back of the skull. Really what's occurring, and this is kind of the interesting part about getting all of these nutrients back in the body, all of the organelles in the brain are finally moving around and doing what they're supposed to do. The cerebellum, the hippocampus, the amygdala, these pieces of our midbrain that very rarely have enough good nutrients to activate are finally doing their job. So we can get this kind of pressure, but again, it's one of those where that's when you're finally reaching that upper echelon of your body. So myself, as an example, started off just like everybody else, probably doing about a half a tablespoon to a tablespoon first off, which is 9 grams of MSM out of the bag here. I currently do 130 grams a day. So, and again, one of the big reasons that that number jumped drastically was when I actually had a double slip or subluxation occur in my spine, and I was kind of immobilized for a few days. Using MSM, I was actually able to not have any kind of pharmaceutical pain relievers. Luckily, I was able to bathe each day for about 3 hours, and that was the way I could actually breathe and keep myself upright. But it was one of those processes to where I was like, if I'm taking this much and I'm still hurting, then I just kept adding more and more, and finally got to a place where I was able to relieve the inflammation enough to actually maintain and not miss any work, not have any issues, other than it was troubling and really hard to kind of move around and deal with. Magnesium was going on probably every hour on the hour, and I was doing, again, probably I started off with about 100 to 120 grams of the MSM. So definitely great product for people to be considering adding into their system. Questions?
Just a comment from me, that MSM, if I wake up in the middle of the night,
Mm-hmm.
I don't wait till the morning to take the MSM. I just mix it up in a cup of hot water and take it, and I'm out like a light
Really?
until dawn comes back.
Interesting.
So
If you're waking up at the 3 o'clock hour, 2 to 3 on average, then what you're doing is you're actually treating your liver to a detoxifant compound that helps your liver clean itself. That's why you're going back to sleep. So again, liver function, liver activation is so critical with the MSM compound and getting good quality sulfur. Even people who notice that they actually have liver spotting on their skin will see those remove themselves when they get enough adequate sulfur to get their liver back into full function. So again, if you want to be the type of person who only goes after skin deep issues, at least you can get some MSM to kind of fix those problems as well too. But that's amazing. Go ahead.
Regarding the magnesium gel.
Uh-huh.
Any issues with loose valves with that?
No. Right. So the question is the idea of loose bowels. No, we don't see that issue because the actual direct muscles controlling the colon are not being affected by going through the actual skin system. But the blood is absorbing the increased magnesium. I'm sure you could probably put enough on the stomach to where eventually you'd have the reaction occur. But luckily with the skin, it kind of regulates how much your body's pulling in. And that's definitely one of those to where we would see what your body can react. But no, not the same. And that's why to get enough magnesium in the body to hyperdose magnesium is very tough internally, because as soon as you reach a level, your body's just going to flush. Milk of magnesia is the way that we all have used a laxative before, and it has that same effect. Using the magnesium oil definitely as a laxative does work, but that's where the skin does such a better. All over, but really the one thing that I would say for most people is actually the soft underskin of the arms, the actual side of the rib cage here where the skin's a little thinner, also behind the knees, bottoms of the feet, behind the ears. Even for migraine sufferers, put it directly behind the ears. It'll actually absorb into the area where you're having pressure. Put it up on the temple if that's where you're having your pressure, and let it be there to cool and to calm those muscles, because that's a lot of times where our tension headaches or nerve-induced headaches are occurring. So that has a direct application. Here's the other interesting chiropractic trick that I was able to learn in these last couple of years as well too. Thank you, sir. Oh. Thank you.
Process it and make
The interesting thing is, of course, get out your diagram because everybody has one of your entire spinal system and be able to look at which vertebrae is actually connected to the area you're having a problem in. If you're having digestive discomfort, digestive issues, the actual upper thoracic vertebrae are controlling the nerves that are going out and controlling those organs. So you could have an actual point of inflammation or pain in that spot in your spine, and that's actually causing your dysfunction to where everything you might do, ingestion, topically, all of that may not have an actual effect, and you'll see the relief come from actually working with the spine directly. So there is some keys to that. I'm probably one of those weird people, but I just have that little, diagram and chart of the spine on my phone. And someone asked me a question, I'm like, okay, hold on one second. Ever been in a car accident, damage your C2, C3? And they go, well, yeah, I have. I'm like, well, that's your migraines. And they go, are you kidding? I'm like, go to your chiropractor, see what they say, and literally come back and go, yep, I have this major movement on the top of my spine. Had no idea, it never healed, and I've been suffering for 10 years on migraines. It's something that simple. So there is those kind of interrelated. One of the themes for 2015 for me to actually do this work is the idea of understand your interconnectedness. No one piece, I don't care if it's the tip of your finger, is not interconnected with every single other aspect of you. So when you try to deal with a problem, it's never that spot that's the problem. You could have improper shoe function, which creates an indentation on the actual outer ligaments of the knee, which causes the pelvic to move to one side, which causes lower lumbar stress, which actually creates indigestion. I mean, how funny is that? So here you are going, I just wish I could get this food down. And it's actually something you're doing because of your shoes. So we need to understand that. It's so powerful. So let me get into the omega oils. Oh, yes. Temperature doesn't help or doesn't matter at all to it, whatever you prefer for yourself. I know a lot of people, they like warm in the morning. It's good for boosting digestion, and kind of if you're using it as a good additive for getting increased digestion and waking up, then warm is very common. But no issues in the terms of the temperature. So that's one of those. Yeah, it's a little bit. That's true. That's true. Warm does actually do a better job there at helping that out. So jumping into omegas. Yeah, so we're going on an hour and a half. You guys are awesome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sitting through this. I hope you're gaining something out of this. Everybody gets at least one good fact. So with omega oils, these are what I call the powerhouse protectors, because these guys are the best way to keep your cells from degrading, disintegrating, decomposing, and having a lot of issues occurring inside their system. They are the way for us to fortify not only the actual outer cell wall, but all of the inner workings and the pieces of each individual cell. So omegas come in literally a vast array of numbers that a lot of people might know a little bit about. Most people have at least heard of 3, 6, and 9 on the omegas, but there's actually omega 1, omega 2, omega 5, omega 7, 9, and literally I think we just haven't even gone through the understanding of them all the way up until about the 30s. But that's just because we don't know what they do. They're just there, and we haven't really spent the time that it takes to research or to understand. 3, 6, and 9, everybody kind of gets. 3 and 9 are really good for anti-inflammatory. 6 actually promotes inflammation a little bit. Things that are rich in 6 are a lot of our sesame seeds, canola oil. You can find them in hemp as well too. Flaxseed, there's a little bit in flaxseed. It's still omega-3 rich. A lot of people use the concept of actually getting twice as much omega-3 as they do omega-6, and equal amounts of omega-6 as they do omega-9. So Udun's oil or Udu's oil is a balanced product where they're trying to keep the omegas in good competition. Pumpkin seeds, really high omega-6 as well too, can be pro-inflammatory. So people can react very heavily to a very high dose of omega-6. With omega-3, we can see hormone balance. We see a lot of issues with endometriosis, a lot of cervical and ovarian issues that are created because of a complete lack or just non-exposure to omegas. And that's definitely one of those to where we can see people start to see a major change in even a 30-day cycle by just increasing their omegas to the point of about 5 grams a day. So very critical. 5 grams to me is about a minimum. If you're experiencing inflammation, if you've got something occurring to your body, you probably need to be more than that. One of the unique things is that we love to support the enzymatically pre-digested version of omega oil that comes from either cod or skate as one of the best sources for being able to get your body to absorb. The reason being is most people's digestive systems aren't strong enough, or you've lost your gallbladder completely and you can't break down oils. So that's one of the big issues that we see with a lot of people is they'll be taking a fish oil product. And again, the RDA on the back says 2. Some people need 4. Some people need 6. Some people need 20. You just really don't know about yourself. The idea is all of a sudden you might find that at 5 or 6, wow, I really notice no inflammation in my joints, in my stomach, wherever you might see that present. And I literally use this test for myself. If I have taken my omegas in good concentration over the week, sometimes I do it here just for fun because but I have a click that'll happen in one ankle here. If I've taken enough omega, no click. If I haven't, I hear the click. And it's very funny because I think I can, yeah. I hear the click. So this week, and I know for sure because I've actually had 2 nights where I haven't taken my omegas, it's definitely telling me that there's that little issue there. Yes, go ahead.
Do you know why our physician told us to take I think it was the low fat, like it's a 2-to-1 ratio low fat yogurt?
Low fat yogurt. I would say if he's saying yogurt, it's because of the ability to take in a probiotic as well with your oil in order to decrease the amount of burping or sort of reflux that a lot of people experience when they eat the omega oils. Again, can't really fix that. It's a fish product. But the concept here is that we want to have as good of exposure. The trick, the very big tip that I would say for a lot of people, take them at night right before you go to bed. You're not going to be up if you're burping. So that's a really fun thing, and you shouldn't have that issue. I know you're a little bit of a different category there, but it is one of those to where you can actually put these as well into the freezer and have them be solid before they go into the stomach, and they will pass through the stomach and into the intestines, meaning no burping. A lot of people who are taking the liquid oil can't help you. Sorry. It's going to taste fishy. That's the way life goes. There's nothing wrong with that. You should be very happy. Yes.
Well, fish are now getting very polluted in the ocean.
Yes.
So what are you saying about no fish, but now taking this product?
So no fish consumption has been a recommendation of mine for the last 2 to 3 years. That's true. I honestly, it's hard for me to recommend that. New Zealand salmon is about the only thing that I could possibly tell people that is still pristine and very safe at this moment. Don't know what's going to happen in the next year or so. Most of your southern hemisphere sourced, like Chilean sea bass, things of that nature, are better to eat because a lot of the pollution issues from Fukushima are kept to the northern hemisphere waters. But understand that even in 2002, when the Fish and Wildlife and the EPA combined to do a study of all fish populations surrounding North America, at that point in time, they actually had 100% of all fish contain at least noticeable levels of mercury. So that was before any of these issues were happening. Again, it's very unique to me because they always do talk about. You okay, Val? It's getting to you. The interesting thing is so there was already heavy metal toxicity in 100% of all fish sampled. That was before any of the other problems that have come up in the most recent years with Fukushima and the increase of all of those toxicities to go in. And so it's unique because fish weren't that great then. We had the idea that pregnant women shouldn't eat any kind of canned tunas or anything of that nature because it was too toxic to create too many issues. So things have not gotten better; they've gotten worse. So eating fish is a tough recommendation. The nice thing about the enzymatically broken down fish oil is that toxicity found inside the fish are actually pre-digested, and you're just getting the nutritional derivatives and not eating the actual fish oil itself. So the oils would contain any of the toxins that were inside the fish, which means that when you do the enzyme material here, it's not the same as like a liquid Carlson's or something to where they're just squeezing the fish and putting it in the bottle.
So does that eliminate the issue with oxidation?
It does. It does. It helps prevent it very drastically, which is why these are shelf stable. They don't require refrigeration. You can actually put them anywhere you want to. Great for travel packs. Great for going overseas. I don't think TSA has an issue with those guys. I have found that they don't like cinnamon. I don't know why, but TSA people hate cinnamon. So don't carry cinnamon in your packages whenever you're getting on a plane. I don't know why. It's weird on the cinnamon thing. They just do not like, and it's labeled. It says cinnamon right on the front. They don't trust it. They make people throw it away all the time. But it is one of those interesting things where, yes, the omegas, again, by having the enzymatic breaking down, are beneficial. Omegas come from everything from avocados. You can get Sanchi Inchi seeds. You can find them in a lot of plants. But again, we just want to limit omega-6 to try to be a little bit away from the pro-inflammatory condition there. It has omega-6, yes. It does have a majority omega-3 and 9, so there's a great balance there. But yeah, people like them, but there are people who will, and I will work with them over the course of a few months and find out that they've been adding hemp to a shake or a smoothie or chocolates, and we pull it out and they're reactive too, and it's more than likely the omega-6 again, it's just depending on your body. You just don't know. But it's one of those things that's where a lot of times with like flaxseed, another really commonly used omega-3 donor, has a lot of phytoestrogens in it and can be very damaging and affecting to a person on their hormone levels. So we a lot of times don't recommend flax. We'll more often recommend chia. Which doesn't seem to have that issue inside the bodies. So chia becomes a really nice seed version for good, delicious version of omega-3 as well too. Man, that was a lot. Anybody else tired?
No, I think you should do it again.
No, I can. That's the thing about me. If you hung around me for 15 minutes, we'll go one more time. Do you want the runners up though, or are you done with 5? Are we done with 5? Because if we're done with 5, everybody can go home. I'll talk about the runners up. We have more paper. Yeah, I'm sure we have more paper. Andrew, I don't know if you can grab. There's some scrap paper over there. In doing this class as many years as I have now, this is probably going on 5 years that I've been running my 5 essentials. So this is kind of fun for me, and I'm finally to a point to where I think I got it down pretty well. So everybody always comes back and go, well, what about vitamin C? I thought that was so important. And you're right. You're right. But the unique thing is that, so as we talk about the runner-ups, it's wonderful because vitamin C is critical. But I know a lot of people out there who are doing really well at getting adequate vitamin C. So is it that 5 essentials for getting the keys to good health and nutrient to improve their wellness and start healing? It's definitely a part of our good process. It's definitely used in the body for immune function. The big thing about vitamin C is the fact that it's our base level antioxidant. And it's actually the one that if we don't have presence of vitamin C in our body, a lot of our other higher antioxidant functions don't get activated. So imagine this as being the whole idea of not being able to clean a path to your front door. If your house is that dirty, that having that issue, vitamin C begins the process. It's what allows for most of the antioxidant function, 50 to 60% of the antioxidant function in your body.
Now, would you be talking about your
Camu, correct.
Why does that take so long?
Awful. Total perspective basis opinion. Yeah, Camu is literally one of like the better tasting ones we have. I could maybe see on Trafala a little bit, but Camu, no. Again, what we find, and here's a very beautiful phrase that we normally see in Chinese medicine: the worse something tastes, the more you need it. So I don't know why that's the case, because that kind of makes it really hard to get it in there. If everything tasted like marshmallows and chocolate, then we'd be perfectly fine on taking all these bitter herbs and all of that great stuff. But that's exactly right. It creates problems. So we've got to understand that there's that bit in there, but it is true. Over actually getting yourself used to, and like for myself, I've gone up to taking close to about a tablespoon of Camo Camo at a time. Vitamin C flush happens very quickly thereafter, so it's not one of those things you would do when you're anywhere outside of your home. But it is one of those things where getting the Camo Camo, getting the good vitamin C, at least if it says the word berry somewhere near it, that's a natural form of vitamin C. We really want to let people understand ascorbic acid, coming away from pharmaceutical manufacturing, is not vitamin C. It's labeled as vitamin C. It's on every food product out there that's given synthetic operation. It's even used as a preservative. Probably because it's not edible, but it's one of those to where we really need to make sure that people understand that multivitamins, a lot of products out there use ascorbic acid, and more often than not, it's actually a derivative of GMO corn. So we want to understand it has nothing even to do with the citrus plant. They could squeeze orange juice on it, it would have more vitamin C than what they would if they just had a bunch of ascorbic acid. Scientifically, they've shown that the actual breakdown in the molecule of vitamin C and ascorbic acid are similar. So, but again, it's very interesting. Immune function, digestion. Camu Camu berry, one of the best benefits here is it actually boosts serotonin. It actually allows for you to start to build your own happy chemical.
Is it true if you take citric acid, that will prevent scurvy? But
correct.
Like
correct.
Something else.
And that's very true. Yeah, citric acid is technically ascorbic acid. Yeah, so it won't do what we actually get out of just eating a tangerine every so often, which is scurvy prevention. So we know that it's not doing the same functionality as what it does inside the human body. And if you ever get the chance, or if you're a curious kind of quizzical person like I am, look up the electron scanning microscope comparison for vitamin C and ascorbic acid. Vitamin C literally looks like a massive with those mace, ball and chain kind of medieval war guys that has all these spikes. Those spikes are what cause it to go against a virus or a bacteria compound and lysis or break it open so your immune system can clean it up. When you look at ascorbic acid, it literally looks like a dust bunny. Like it has no action on the outside of its body, and so it just doesn't work. Doesn't work the same. Natural sourced foods, luckily Camu Camu, one of the highest vitamin C source containing plants that we've been able to find. There is an Australian berry that's trying to come up as being stronger. ORAC value, if you like those, is like 20 to 30,000 for the vitamin C from the Camu Camu berry. So definitely look at getting this into the body. Some of the other runner-ups for this class, as we're kind of understanding it and rounding it out, are a lot of the cofactors that go into keeping good levels of the 5 essentials in the body. Vitamin D requires a cofactor called vitamin K, and vitamin K2 more specifically. So very, very critical if you're trying to raise your vitamin D levels to get adequate forms of vitamin K2. One of the easy ways is that, again, we have that as being a fat-soluble compound out of the skate and cod oils. There are certain plant compounds from like natto, which is a fermented soy product that actually is one of the few soy products I'll recommend for people. Great source of K2. So the natto kinase is natto kinase is K2 in a plant form. So I try to make sure that I keep all of the non-animal eating people happy as well too. That I want them to be just as healthy. I have no judgment. But it is one of those to where you can see other versions and other forms. K also is found very routinely in just green leafy vegetables. So eat your shards, eat your kales, eat your mustard greens, your really good high quality, those material. You'll be getting some K2 back into the body. But K2 is very critical. It's technically like putting a helmet and body armor on top of your vitamin D. It actually protects that molecule as it's flowing through the body system and doesn't allow for it to be broken down.
So
Yes.
we take Rev 1, we getting vitamin K?
Rev 1. Yes, it'll have the barley. And the brown seaweeds I know has some K2 in it. So yes, there is some level of it. Minimal. It's not a high component of it, but it is there. Like I say, the skate or the cod is probably the best food supplementation.
We don't have to go out and buy the vitamin K2 then.
You no, if you're taking that on a routine basis, no, you're good. We mentioned how important iodine was. So another great runner-up in this is the understanding for selenium. Selenium is actually a compound that opens up and allows for the aperture to be modified properly for the absorption of iodine. So without selenium, and this is sometimes I think the bigger issue for Hashimoto sufferers, is that their selenium concentrations are so low, they don't even have the right receptor zones for absorbing their iodine to get function back in their thyroid. So selenium is a compound that we find in Brazil nuts, and our Pristine Proteins blend is probably one of the tastiest and best versions that we can find for Brazil nut butter is pretty stinking good too. A little bit of raspberry in that. Phenomenal. But no, Brazil nuts are the great food source for getting high doses of selenium into the body. And there is actually too much selenium, so that's another thing to keep in mind. The average person needs only about 4 or 5 whole Brazil nuts a day, or you want to keep your dosing levels at about 1,200 to 1,500 micrograms per day. So it is definitely one of those compounds. If you're trying to heal your thyroid, get some selenium in the body. And a lot of times prior to you really ramping up your iodine dosage.
So much to get that in the freezer.
I don't know. I mean, Christmas mix is out on the counter for months, isn't it usually? I mean, that's the way it normally goes. Inside the shell, I would say don't worry about it. If they've been shelled, then probably just to keep the oils from not having any issues. I think I know people though that literally bring the same Christmas mix out of the storage every year to where it's kind of funny when you walk. Oh, Brazil nuts, yeah, that sounds delicious. But they do.
You don't really have them in a big, huge bin.
Yes.
And then it's like you get them home and you're expected to enjoy it.
Yeah, and taste terrible. Yeah, that's definitely one of those. But luckily, with the Brazil nut powder, we don't have that issue. It's delicious and ready for you whenever you like. But yeah, definitely something where most nuts are kind of like that, where they need to be kept in good, cool environments. At least cool. Freezers, of course, fantastic. The other really important and wonderful runner-up on this is all of your B vitamins. We have a class that we'll be giving in a couple weeks called our Rev It Up, our metabolism class, and you'll understand a little bit more detail about the importance of B vitamins. But the idea is to get a very wonderful B vitamin complex that's actually got the methylation cofactors, because this, again, with methylation, means absorption. That's the great thing to take away from everything about methylation from MSM or the Bs. To get it across the blood barrier, it requires a methyl group. So very, very critical to be getting. And because B vitamins are used in a lot of our digestion functions, when you're trying to improve your gut health and improve your nutrition level, it's B vitamins that are going to assist that process for getting good digestion and absorbing material back in the system. The last one, silica. So main reason that I think I started years ago talking about silica was when it came to working with people who had been vaccine damaged with high levels of aluminum. One of the unique things about silica is that it does a great job at displacing aluminum when your cells are overloaded with that. And so when it comes to Alzheimer's, dementia conditions, any kind of psychosomatic syndromes that are affecting brain tissue and high doses of aluminum being found in the body, you are lacking a lot of times the silica. So just like we talked about bromine and iodine, it's unique because silica and aluminum are one of those materials where they kind of go interchangeably together. If we were to take a good volunteer, chop your leg off, send you home happily on your way. The idea is we could take the actual femur bone of your body and put it into sulfuric acid and break it apart to where all the calcium gets eliminated. It's actually about 80% silica. So when people talk about having tremendous hip fracturing, femur fracturing, again, one of the more interesting things in our society that we deal with, it's really, it shouldn't happen, but we have self-induced femur fracturing to where you'll literally just be walking and you're just break your femur. It shows that the silica that's keeping the bone flexible is no longer present, and the calcium has gone too high. So when it comes to osteoporosis prevention, a lot of people recommend calcium. Understand that calcium in its full form is like chalk. If you put a little pressure on it, it snaps. That's what these bones are doing because they lack silica. Silica is what actually keeps us flexible. And that's same to be true for joints, all the tissues, connective tissues, hair, skin, and nails, anything that moves, arterial lining, anything that's actually something that has to give and stretch is going to be silica.
And after the fact, I know 2 ladies broke femurs.
Yeah.
Still good.
Still, well, I mean, absolutely critical. They already have a deficiency to the point to where they've broken the bone. Now they've got to heal it and be able to replace the overload of the actual calcium. So we see a lot of issues happening in the elderly care for silica being one of these. It's just never mentioned. No one talks about it. And this, with combination of vitamin D and sulfur, is that really great osteopenia, osteoporosis prevention program for people to start seeing good bone health come back. So, correct. Really good for tissues. And for guys who don't want to lose their hair, more silica. Couple different things, but yeah, it still helps. So there is, again, a tremendous benefit here towards the idea of all these wonderful superfoods, using the 5 essentials, bringing in some of these great runners up, and that's where it's kind of tough to really focus. Yes?
Can you get enough silica by taking like certain herbs like eucomial bark or horsetail?
Horsetail, eucomia, maca. Yeah, there's some. The issue that we always see when it comes to plant-sourced silica is that, again, if you have improper or low-functioning digestive activity, you're not breaking things down fully to even get these microminerals out of the foods that you're taking in. So when you get a very good pure isolated form that's liquid absorbed in a treatment towards water, this becomes a much easier way to bypass that to where you can still get healthy while you're trying to improve and repair the body. So it's one of those to where it might take 5 or 6 years for you to rebuild your digestive system if you've had a lot of issue, gluten sensitivity, IBS, again, diverticulitis, very common issues. And we'd like to, really get you on the fast track of getting a lot of these great compounds back in the body as quick as possible. So each one of these 5 essentials, we've talked about optimized ways of absorption, the ways that we can actually see sometimes what's indicating that we need one of these 5 essentials. But I would say for most people, there's just no one out there who doesn't need at least these 5 compounds. So we want to try to create this simple platform. Start here, talk to your friends, talk to your family, your neighbors. Oh, and wait for them to hurt and be like, hey, I got some magnesium in the car. Yeah, I totally can fix that. For them to, maybe start to believe you a little bit. But it is one of those to where we can really see this get introduced, see people start to work, be activated on their health, and really see some major changes occur. I'm standing here as a testament to the fact that, 10, 15 years ago, I had no idea any of this was happening, occurring, anything about this. And over these last few years, really intensified my understanding to the point to where I can work with anybody on any level towards getting them back into health. The idea is, and I'd say the thing that, again, holistically, to kind of wrap things up today, the biggest thing is to finally believe there's something you can do. And if that's all this class does for people, is that this could be that first step. That's all. It might be something as simple as giving them this tiny little guy and go 5 drops of this a day, just see how you feel. It's unique because we don't know what can be that trigger for someone to finally switch over and look towards natural healing ways, but it is one of those to where this platform gives them a great starting point. We want to make it easy and simple. We don't want to create this, really restrictive diet program or something that takes you out of good living, when these are just simple additions to your daily life. So hopefully we can find great ways. If there's any other questions regarding any of these items, I just want to real quick, if you're catching this video, YouTube or on the Ustream, remember the discount code is SMART10. You can find us at rawrevelations.com. If you have any questions for me, feel free to send those to joseph@rrsuperfoods.com to be able to get any kind of particulars that you'd like, or leave comments below, and I'll be able to follow up with you later. But I would like, again, to open up the floor for anybody who has their own questions. I will, again, offer the opportunities for anybody who's interested in health coaching classes at the end of this to set up an appointment as well, too, to where we can establish the next steps if that's what you kind of need. Is more guidance, more understanding, better details. It's hard to do it in a class like this every time. Come to a class where there's no one else and it'll be all about you. But it is one of those to where that's another great opportunity. So send me an email, grab my card. But again, I want to make sure if there are questions here, they always help everybody else learn more. So,
Well, I have a knee issue
Mhm.
since I tweaked it,
right.
and I keep it wrapped.
Okay.
And it helps. The thing is I use that magnesium oil in other areas, but because it keeps it wrapped.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if I should carry that in my purse, not wrap it, and just keep spraying.
Keep spraying. Keep spraying, keep spraying, keep spraying. If you need the support of the bandage or the brace, just put it on under before you actually. And honestly, I would say for me, I would be the type of person where I would actually soak mine and put it and have it actually be a part of the wrap, and that way it's there all day long and creating that great interaction for the body. But yes, that's the idea of get it to the direct source of any kind of issues for the body. So, but see a chiropractor, because a lot of times any issues, again, it's something so simple as your shoes just push a little too much on the arch, and that shoves everything off to the side and creates the weakness plane, and you don't realize that every step you take is creating a bigger issue and more problems. So get that alignment. Okay, good. 4 grams is nice.
Yeah, chiropractor in his office, there's glucose in me, so it must have been 3 months of being faithful to doing this.
Glucose,
But
okay.
it does feel better.
Feel better.
But
Shark.
I also started your stuff for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. So MSM, magnesium. The other really good thing about joint stabilization, again, go back to silica.
I got that last Thursday.
Yeah.
I noticed that right away.
Oh, good. Fantastic.
I noticed right away.
The other thing really good for repairing the actual any kind of knee issue, any kind of joint issue is bone broth.
Yeah, I made it and I put it in the freezer.
So do some bone broth. Get that good cartilaginous material in there.
Are you finished with this?
What's that?
Are you finished with this?
I'm never done.
I am.
No, you guys are great. No, thank you for coming this evening. Thank you for being here. Fantastic support. If you have any personal questions, feel free to stick around. Remember, 10% off on all the items that are available here today, and so that way we can help you work on this. But thank you. Enjoy. Yeah, so SMART10, SMART, all capitals, the number 10, and rawrevelations.com. Thank you.